is there a drone invasion? So there's over 50 mysterious drones flying around the skies in and around the state of New Jersey.
They knew that warhead was on its way to the United States. That's all that ever came of it.
So mortgage rate projections. So 30-year fixed as of 12/6. So Q4, we don't support either side, but you can clearly see, and just everything that we've talked about a lot this year.
We have.
So much has happened this year.
Episode 46 of the Unscripted Company podcast. Man, we're coming off a week of a live stream. Appreciate everyone that showed up last week for episode 45. I don't know if we'll dive back into any of those topics potentially in a follow-up, but we have some breaking news this week, which I want to tease it before we dive into the Watercooler a little bit. For those of you who have been even remotely paying attention to the news, you might have heard or even seen there's some unidentified drones flying around our East Coast, in particular, the great state of New Jersey. And I have some information. It's not exclusive information, but we'll dive into that here shortly. But for those of you who haven't joined the podcast before, we like to start off with something we call the Watercooler. It's just a way for Riley and I to be able to catch up on how each other's weeks went, talk about things that may be off topic from the overall episode. So I kind of want to hand it off to you, Riley. You were alluding to something before I hit record that you had like an update on something. Kind of want to throw it your way, see like what's up on your side.
Yeah, so and I'll dive more into it, but yeah, I was at another Tom Ferry event this week. It was like a Tom Ferry roadmap thing, so it's kind of just like, what are you going to do for 2025? Make 2025 your best year ever. And I definitely have a lot of things. I say a lot of things, but I got to really narrow it down on what I want to do to make my business successful. And so definitely going to dive into like an update. Like I'm going to kind of go down through the slides a little bit. I'll share them and like on the screen and whatnot, but just kind of that way then people don't think it's coming from me. It's coming from, the people who study the market like a lot more than I do. Not saying I don't study the market, not saying I don't know what happens in our market, but the information I get is a lot of the information that comes from here. But it's
hard when you I like to look at graphs. I like to look at data. I like to read a lot to try to figure out what is happening in various markets, whether they be in equities. But the problem is no matter how educated you are, at the end of the day, chaos is bound to happen from time to time. So even if over the last 100 years, there's always been a correlation with X and Y data point, chaos is bound to happen eventually. And so you can say something and then the other will happen. So that's why it's always fun to talk about data that other people tell us. So that way you're never directly.
Right. And the thing is like, again, these people, they take the data from the entire country. So like I still have to do my own research about the, DFW or Denton County or Collin County. Like I still have to do my research in the specific areas that I work in, because although the information here is broadened across an entire country, this is what I, based on that. So we'll definitely get into that. But in the meantime, how was your week this week?
It's pretty good. Had a fun weekend. For those of you who weren't aware, we're about a week and a half away from Christmas. So if you haven't gotten your gifts yet, now is the time to figure that out. Hopefully you have Amazon Prime, because you're going to need a miracle at this point, probably. But it's good. So yesterday, it was a Saturday, we went to this thing in Burnet, Texas, so kind of out in the hill country a little bit, called Main Street Bethlehem. It's kind of cool. My family actually grew up going to this thing like it was an annual tradition. Went for like 20 something years straight, and then went off to college. Family grew up, but Abby and I went with some of her friends. And what it is basically is in downtown Burnet, right off their town square, they have this, I guess the best way to describe it would be a living art installation of what Bethlehem theoretically looked like the night of Jesus's birth, which, it's kind of cool. So it's like a permanent installation. They do it, I think, 2 weekends out of the year. They used to do it a lot more. I think they've toned it back a lot since like the COVID years and all that. So much has changed since then, but it's cool. It's You have, I don't know, probably 100 plus different actors in there. They each play a different role. You have Roman guards, you have the merchants, you have people that, are there to pay their taxes. Maybe they didn't pay their taxes, so they get arrested. There's a prison. There's like anything you can think of, candle makers, basket makers, things like that. And then at the tail end of it, you have the whole manger scene in the cave and all of that. Very cool though. I know it's a little bit of a drive if you're coming from like the Dallas Fort Worth area, but definitely worth the trip. And it's free admission. They just ask for like donations if you're willing to give. It's a fun time though. And then the city of Burnet started to do like a downtown Christmas festival on the square, like local vendors and stuff like that.
Right.
And so it's kind of cool as you can do kind of both. You can wait in line, go do the Main Street Bethlehem thing, and then afterwards you can go do like the Burnet Christmas Festival or vice versa.
Right.
So we did that yesterday and it was pretty cool.
So since you're on that topic, just real quick, and then I'll kind of go into kind of what will or how my week was and everything. But there's two things that I want to actually go to. I'm actually going to share these real quick. So one of them is, it's called the Nazarene. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I haven't, no.
So they have different locations. Apparently they have one in Dallas Fort Worth, but it's closed right now, which is weird because it shows it open or should have opened back up already. But they've got them in different areas as well, like Houston also and everything. But it's it actually goes through the story of Jesus, like and beforehand, I'm pretty sure. But it's like you'll enter the Holy Lands of Israel, see the mesmerizing sunsets. You'll hear people's like these are people's testimonials of it. Olive Tree Alley, travel in time photo booth, like the whole gallery right here.
Oh, so it's like an art gallery type setup thing.
Almost, but it's like it's a moving art gallery kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's like it shows everything from beginning to end, essentially. And then the other one that I want to go to ever since I saw an ad for this on Facebook and I was like, oh, that looks super cool. I want to go to that. It's called the Ark Encounter. And so this is it's a life-size version of the Ark.
Oh, I've heard about this.
And you can actually go inside of it, and it has like, what it would look like inside and everything, and all the cool stuff that you can do. And there's probably more stuff like surrounding it, like, some stuff that you have like over here and everything. But it's in Kentucky, I think, from what it's showed. But
that sounds about right from what I remember.
Yeah, but that
because it's at the was it the Creation Museum?
I think so. Let's see. It's just a museum in Williamstown, Kentucky. But
okay.
But yeah, that's
a big boat.
Yeah, it is a big boat. But yeah, no. I mean, as far as my week, it was a week. Had a few showings. It's people. At the end of the day.
It's a weird time of the year too.
Yeah, and again, I don't want anyone to think like, oh, I don't like. I love what I do. 100%, I love what I do. But people have to, you have to be educated. A lot of people think it's still 2021, and a lot of people still think it's 2008. Or whatever, like whatever the case it may be. But
what do you mean by that? Did you mean that they're expecting on the buyer side for prices to be lower and the seller side for prices to be higher?
Yeah. And some people have, they see a house that's listed for one price and they're like, okay, well, I want to offer $70,000 less on that house.
Ooh, I know. I'm like, dude, that's grasping the straws right there. Like, okay, maybe if the house has been on the market for like a year and they're super desperate to sell, but at that point, uneducated guess here, but I would assume the seller would lower the price if they really were desperate to sell it.
The people will lower the price, yes, but they still got to try to meet their bottom dollar. You know, like you don't want to lose money on it at the end of the day. Yeah, if
someone bought the house for $340, they're not going to sell it for $320.
Yeah. Especially depending on how much it appreciated for and how long you've lived in it.
Yeah.
And so I've had conversations with some of the same people. It's the same conversation. Like, do you think this will happen? Do you think they'll accept this? And it's an extremely lower offer. And every time we've had that conversation with people, I'm like, I don't know. Let's put the offer in though. Like, if you won't believe me, because we've had this conversation a number of times, I don't straight up tell them, oh, I'm not going to put that offer in. I'll say, let's put the offer in then. But they won't speak to a lender. and they know they can afford it. And these are just different variations of people that I've dealt with, but like they know
Wait,
that
hold
they could.
up. Just so I understand, are they putting in an offer before they get pre-qualified?
They're no, they're not trying to,
Okay.
but they want to put offers in on properties, but they want to go under the list price. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk to a lender first. Let's get all this stuff out here, because like even if you do go under, I'll put the offer in, but I still need to have a pre-approval letter to submit with the offer.
Yeah.
So like whether or not you're going under or not, So at the end of the day, it's just about educating people and just being that resource for people. Um, I've got a showing tomorrow evening for a couple who seem very like they're like we're ready to buy now. Like we don't want to be where we're at anymore. We want to buy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. And then I have a couple that I showed yesterday from Kansas. The husband isn't too sold yet on moving from Kansas to Texas, but the wife, she wants to. Um, so it's just working with those. I mean, I have a good promising like base set up for going into next year. It's just a matter of just being patient with everything and knowing that everything will work out as it should. Definitely going to start working a lot more of my database and my sphere next year, so that I can start, not necessarily in a sense to only hopefully get deals, but at the same time, it's like, just to get back in touch with people. Like there's a lot of people I haven't been in touch with in a long time. And so it's just, it's about time I do so. And what better way to do it than, while I'm in this career path. But other than that, it's been a good week. This week I got a closing tomorrow. I've got to deliver all my pop buys to all my previous clients throughout various areas. So I'll be doing a lot of driving these next 2 days.
Yeah.
And then I've got a Zoom class that I'm actually very thankful for, because after doing all that driving the first 2 days, on Wednesday and Thursday, I'll be on my laptop from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on a Zoom class.
Yeah.
And then it's just the holidays after that. I mean, if people want to go see properties, sure, we'll go, but I'll be out of town Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So
Yeah. And I guess you also have to think about, the buyer may want to see the property, but does the seller want to show the property, with it being the holidays? Because I imagine some people might even be hosting. I mean, I guess
yeah.
or if you're going to say something. Well, I was going to say just like, if you're selling the house, I guess you do technically have it ready, staged at the ready for showings. But like once you get to like December 23rd, it's 2 days before Christmas. Like you probably let your guard down a little bit because you're settling in for Christmas Day.
Yeah. And I mean, there was like, someone wanted to see a house the day before Thanksgiving. But the sellers didn't want to because they were prepping for Thanksgiving, and I was like, I completely understand. Like, I mean, and some people understand, some people don't, but we'll see. At the end of the day, like I love what I do. I truly do. And it may not, this year was definitely better than the first year. Next year is going to be even better than this, and so on and so forth. It's going to keep getting better. It's going to keep, I'm going to do my best to have a consistent business and hopefully have that growth behind it as well, so that I can, just continue growing, at the end of the day. So
no, it's a good plug too. If any of you listening out there ever have the inkling of potentially buying your first home in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, maybe you're outside of Dallas-Fort Worth, you've been hearing all of the great things about the Lone Star Estate and you want to get your slice of the pie, now is the time. Well, maybe wait till the holiday season kind of wraps up a little bit, but
we'll talk about it because I'm going to go into detail here, and then you can make your decision.
Fair enough. One thing I want to share real quick, just in case we do have anybody that may reside in the great state of Texas. Let me see if I can share this real quick. I'm going to reload the page. This is actually the website for Main Street Bethlehem, just to give you an idea of like what this looks like.
Okay.
It's like an actual like living, breathing downtown Bethlehem, basically, where you go and you have all these actors and it's like you're walking in the middle of downtown. There's camels, donkeys, goats.
That's cool.
Men, women, children. Got rabbis. It's cool stuff. But yeah, so if you ever find yourself anywhere remotely close to Burnett, Texas, obviously you'll be going in 2025. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, Riley, have you heard about these unidentified drones flying across our homeland, and there seems to be little to no explanation about it?
Yes, I have. I kept up with it in the beginning, but I kind of lost track. Like you said, it was kind of difficult to keep up with all the updates that were happening so fast. But yeah, I saw them and I got notifications for everything, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then yeah, you were you
So
wanted to talk about it.
yeah, information is developing very quickly. So definitely do your own due diligence, think for yourself. But what I'm going to try to do is break down what do we know thus far. So, what we do know, going back to December 13th. So, as of recording this is December 15th. Is there a drone invasion? So, there's over 50 mysterious drones flying around the skies in and around the state of New Jersey. So, New Jersey residents are freaking out after dozens of mysterious 8 to 10-foot drones were spotted buzzing the skies. One night alone saw 50 of these bad boys cruising in from the Atlantic like they were on a mission. Even the Coast Guard says 13 drones followed their boat. These drones don't give off heat, making them nearly invisible to trackers. And guess what? Neither the military, FBI, nor Homeland Security has a clue who's behind them. At least they aren't publicly saying they know who or what is behind them. Now you have Sheriff Michael Mastronardi didn't hold back. I'll show you a video here in a second telling the White House to, quote, come to the Jersey Shore and see the drone chaos for themselves. Now I have a video down here I'm going to play real quick, just as a quick introduction from News Nation to give everyone an idea of what the heck are we dealing with here.
One of their officers called 911 after seeing 50 of them come off the ocean.
Advised after we made contact with that officer that there were 50 that came off the ocean.
50?
50. That was my reaction also. There were 50 that were coming off the ocean.
And this is a sworn officer?
A sworn officer, yes. We contacted state police, we contacted the FBI, we contacted the Coast Guard, at which point the Coast Guard went out with their boat and they reported seeing 13 following their boat, and then the Coast Guard also advised that they went over them about 300 feet and had a wingspan of about 8 feet.
You know, the Ocean County Sheriff, that drone unit, they have an industrial grade drone. They put it up. They were tracking one of these drones, Elizabeth, and they said this thing easily evaded them, disappeared out of thin air. So, you know, to me, it's if this is not our military, then it's even more scary, and we need answers, frankly.
So that's when the news started to really buzz because the people in New Jersey were seeing this stuff, right? And they were like, okay, because it's one thing. I feel like most of us now understand what like a domestic drone looks like a DJI drone where you get the little camera gimbal on there, or potentially one of those, I don't even know what the correct term is, but the drones that they like professionally race and things like that, how they'll send them in through like buildings to get like videos and stuff like that. So you had people in New Jersey that were seeing this stuff and they're like, what the heck is going on? Started calling 911. Local law enforcement is out here. They're seeing it. Nobody's providing any answers. So none of the government agencies are really out here saying like, yeah, it's us, or, oh yeah, we know what it is. There's been some, on the onset of this a couple days ago, there was like some weird spinning of news where someone said it was like, I think it was a senator, maybe a congressman, said that Iran had a ship off our coast and they had sent in a mothership that had drones that it then sent out. That got debunked real dang fast, thankfully. It just sounds like they're really trying to get us into a war with Iran right now. So that was happening. But throughout this whole time, no one's providing an official explanation. So much so that even soon-to-be President-elect Donald Trump came out on Truth Social and said, mystery drone sightings all over the country. Can this really be happening without our government's knowledge? I don't think so. Let the public know, and now, otherwise, shoot them down. Donald J. Trump. And so even Trump is out here saying, what the heck's going on, guys? Shoot them down if they're not going to tell us. And so everyone's out here speculating what the heck is going on. And so I try to do my own due diligence because news is developing very quickly, especially today as of recording. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, the good folks over at Zero Hedge kind of put together all of the different tweets that I had aggregated, and they conveniently already had it in an article with a good narrative going on here. So I kind of want to go through this real quick. And then Riley, I want to pick your brain because when the news first broke, when I first heard, this was a couple days ago, when I first heard that we had drones, at the time people were saying UFOs because they had no idea what it was. Technically, I guess it is a UFO if it's unidentified. I was initially thinking, okay, this is probably one or two things. Half of me was like, aliens. And like, I don't know, I like to entertain that idea of, yeah, there's like aliens out there, right? Then the other half's like, what if it's like a foreign adversary? But let's be real here. If it's a foreign adversary, you would see our own people going after it, right? You would hope, at least. You would hope if there was a foreign military power flying something over our airspace, we would then go after it. I say that, however, we had that Chinese balloon thing that happened not too long ago, and who knows? But there's a theory that kind of exploded onto the scene this morning, and I'll kind of walk us through whose theory this is and those that are starting to corroborate this theory. So throughout the day, what started off as kind of a terrifying pie in the sky theory has solidified itself as potentially maybe the truth. So we'll dive in here. So Zero Hedge had an article that says new theory about what we've been talking about. It says New Jersey drone sightings may be nuclear sniffers following elevated New York City radiation levels. So it says the founder of an aerospace company specializing in military-grade drones published a video on TikTok sharing his thoughts on the mystery drone sightings in New Jersey. His expert opinion is alarming, leaving many wishing what Paul Krugman's theory about an alien invasion was true instead. So there's an image here on the screen showing basically the mystery drones, the sightings, and it's like a heat map of where these drones are being seen. A lot of it is across New Jersey, just outside of New York City, kind of in the northern part of the state, but also the central part of the state around Burlington and Ocean County. Quote, I spoke to a gentleman a few months ago who was trying to raise the alarm to the highest levels of our government about this one particular nuclear warhead that he physically put his hands on that was left over from Ukraine. And he knew this thing was headed towards the United States. Those are the words from John Ferguson, who is Saxon Aerospace's CEO. And I'll play you the video, what he says here in a moment. He continues on in the video and says, quote, everyone knows that this administration is pushing to get into a war with Russia. Go ahead if you're about to.
Dude, I have so much. So, like, let me just, first off, why I know why this is happening, because Trump's about to get into office. So the current administration is trying to push so hard in these last, like, because he won't get into office until what, February? Is it February or
January?
January. They're trying to push these next few weeks to try to get us so close to a war with Russia that it's only going to take like one little thing and it's just going to pop off. Now, I remember you mentioning something to me today, or sending me something about a nuclear warhead that got lost somewhere. I think you're probably about to get into that with this as well. How does that happen? First off, why do we even have a nuclear warhead from Ukraine in our country right now?
That is a great question, sir.
Like, what is just any of our government, and the fact that none of them know what's happening, and they're just like, oh, we don't know. Well, like, if they're nuclear sniffer drones, so here's my theory. One, it's from a different country. Don't know which one, but it could be any. It could be any of, like, probably the top 5: Russia, China, Iran. Heck, I think there's like a couple other.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. That would be like the power list right there.
Yeah. So like just those three. Or it's what we talked about before we started recording. It's the aliens that are under the ocean, but really it's the Atlanteans that they're coming up and they're like, okay, what are we really dealing with here? Or it's again, a UFO based thing, but since they don't look like your typical drones, did they actually get photos of them? Do we know what they looked like?
Yeah, one thing I'll show you here. So there's countless videos online of people actually seeing these, and I can show you. A lot of people have been perceiving or estimating specific models of drones that these are, and so yes, like this kind of blows the whole alien theory out of the water. Is we're somewhat certain which model of drone this is. And I'll show you. We have a photo video of what that drone looks like. But technically the company, and I'll dive into this, but the company that makes the drone that is in question is basically on the record saying it's not us. So then who is it? But kind of into what you said, and we'll kind of dive deeper into this theory, is if a nuclear weapon or anything nuclear was just lost, right? Stuff happens. I'm not going to say people are perfect, but you want them to be. If something goes lost, you don't want the public to know that you screwed up that bad. You don't want to admit it because it'll show your inferiority in terms of, like, if you can't handle this, you probably can't handle other stuff.
So I'm gonna kind of like play off of a movie here, and just bear with me for a second. Did you ever see the movie Olympus Has Fallen?
No, I have not.
No. Okay. Such a good movie. It's got, there's 3 of them, but the first one, just kind of give you like a brief thing. So this Korean, like these Korean people, I think it's South Korea, come to the White House because they're trying to finalize some documents, all this other kind of stuff. So they come to the White House and everything. Well, you know how
is that the movie where they blow up the White House? It's got Gerard Butler in it.
Yeah.
Yes, I had, and then because they had London Has Fallen as the sequel. It has Morgan Freeman and okay.
So
go ahead and keep explaining it though, in case someone else hasn't.
So in real life, North Korea is actually the country that we have to worry about. Which that's another one I didn't mention was North Korea. And South Korea is the one that's actually our ally. Like, we're here to help South Korea if anything was to ever happen. Well, in the movie, it's actually South Korea that does, like they take over the White House, all the other kind of stuff. So my theory is let's just say one of those 4 countries, Russia, China, Iran, or North Korea, develop these drones. And I don't know if it is actually one of those, but let's just say that one of those 4 developed these drones. Well, what if it's a country that we would least expect that's just trying to ignite that switch, and they were able to get their hands on that technology and make it seem like it was from a different country that's actually coming over here to get whatever information they're trying to get or do whatever it is they're trying to do. And so they're just the instigator, and then we attack the wrong country, ergo World War III.
Potentially. You also have false flag missions where it could just be us the whole time.
Like our own country trying to just sniff us out.
Not even that. So back in the 60s, was it the 60s? Yeah, you had Operation Northwoods, which was the CIA basically wanted to get the U.S. to go to war with Cuba. And the method that they were going to go about doing that was creating what appeared to be real scenarios, such as taking pedestrian planes or civilian planes, painting them like military planes, and then shooting them down, and then saying that Cuba did it. Or I think one of the other ones, if I remember correctly, was assassinating Cuban expats that were living in the U.S. and making it seem like it was the Cuban military going after them. I know there was another one. They were going to shoot down, I think, a civilian airliner, like shooting down like a Southwest Airlines plane, basically.
All right.
And saying Cuba did it, but we shot down our own plane, basically, just to get us into a military conflict with them. So it's been done before. Like, our country factually has attempted or looked to attempt. That's what got Kennedy in a lot of hot water, was he wasn't a fan of this and he didn't sign off on any of it, to my understanding.
Why?
Definitely just Google it. If you're listening, just Google Operation Northwoods. It was a real thing.
The only reasoning I can think of, and the only possible reasoning I can think of, is because it's profitable for the United States. Because you have to think,
100%. The military-industrial complex.
Right. Like, it's not like we're in like the 1930s and 40s, like World War I, World War II, whatever the case might have been, where the moment you go to war, it's all hands on deck. So then you have everyone working in these production factories, producing weaponry. So now our infrastructure is so much greater than that now it wouldn't be just you and I in these factories. It wouldn't be you and I going to the front lines. At least I hope not. I'm digging around and going underground.
I think we're gone way past the days of traditional frontline warfare.
Yeah,
for the United States. Other countries, absolutely. We fight proxy wars that for sure have front lines, lives are lost, et cetera, et cetera. But
I think a lot of ours is fought technology based and stuff like that. So I don't know. But I just think that's kind of weird though overall that like our country would try to like I'm not saying our world is in a good place because there's definitely things that could be done better. And I get that other countries have their way of doing things. I get that other countries have their viewpoints of things, but why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Like just coexist. You know, at the end of the day, once you're gone from this world, is it really going to matter? Like, is it really going to matter at the end of the day? Like, you know, I don't care at the end of the day, but I'm just saying, just let me get off my soapbox.
no, you're good. You're good. It's just unfortunately being friends isn't lucrative financially. So,
No.
but let's take a moment here. Let's listen to John Ferguson. So this video started to go very viral on Twitter. I of course saw it on X. A lot of people have been speculating about this, and I'll have some additional commentary from other people around the horn on what Mr. Ferguson has to say. CEO of Saxon Aerospace. He'll explain who he is as well to give you some context here. And then Riley, let me know if the audio is too low on this, and I'll turn it up.
Hey everyone, my name is John Ferguson. I'm the CEO of Saxon Aerospace here in Wichita, Kansas. I'm not normally a TikTok kind of a guy. I like watching this stuff every once in a while. But I'm a manufacturer of unmanned aircraft, military grade unmanned aircraft, as you can see one of my systems here. There's all of these mysterious drones going on off the East Coast, and as a professional, as a subject matter expert, I wanted to give you all my opinion on what I think could be going on with these drones. I don't particularly believe that these have a nefarious intent. I could be wrong, but I want to give you the truth and what I believe. It's my own opinion, and I've not bounced this off of anybody. So, you know, if you think it's bullshit, whatever, that's cool. You know, I don't want to spread
At least he's
misinformation,
honest.
as we
Yeah.
know that there's a lot of that going around. But anyway, back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan had dismantled the nuclear program, and there were, with Russia, there were countless nuclear missiles that were disarmed and disposed of. Well, there were over 80, I believe. There were over 80 nuclear warheads that were in Ukraine that came up missing. Okay. We don't know where they are. Maybe somebody does, but nobody really knows where these are. And I speak with some pretty high level government officials on this stuff, and it seems as though that is the case. So I spoke to a gentleman a few months ago who was trying to raise an alarm to the highest levels of our government, which they had their ears closed, about this one particular nuclear warhead that he physically put his hands on. He physically touched this warhead that was left over from Ukraine. And he knew that that thing was headed towards the United States. Okay. That is a very serious deal. And everyone knows that the United States government, this administration, is pushing to get into a war with Russia. We all know that. We all feel it. We all see it. Okay. Well, back up a few years. Do y'all remember when those drones were mysteriously flying across the Interstate 70 corridor from Colorado up into Nebraska, down here into Kansas, and out into Missouri? Well, it was believed that those drones were looking for radioactive material because there had been some material that come up missing here in the United States, and they felt like it was high probability that the nuclear or the radioactive material would be taken along the Interstate 70 corridor heading east or west or south. So from what we understand, they were out there trying to find this radioactive material. Now, drones, they have no reason to be in the air at night unless you're doing some type of ISR work, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, looking for bad guys, or looking for uh, a victim, a search and rescue victim, or law enforcement, or some type of military um, project, right? There's no reason for a drone to be flying at night, really, okay? Because they don't see shit. So, unless you have thermal optics, drones really don't see stuff. You need to do mapping during the day. If you're going to do farming stuff, you mostly do it during the day. The only reason why you would ever fly an aircraft, an unmanned aircraft at night, is if you're looking for something, whether it be a person or trying to smell gas. We have methane gas detection systems uh, that can detect gas leaks in pipelines. You really wouldn't use thermal optics for trying to find gas leaks, just simply because the only way you're actually going to find a gas leak with thermal optics is if the gas leak is aggressive enough that it has a difference in temperature. Because thermal imaging, it creates a digital image based off of the temperature variance. So whatever is different in temperature, it creates an image. Usually gas leaks so slow that it goes quickly into ambient, before you can even see it. So we have special sensors that can detect gas leaks. We also have special sensors that can detect radioactive material. So with this gentleman that I had spoken with, who was trying to raise the alarm to try to get somebody in the government to say, hey, we need to work together to go try to find this nuclear warhead, none of that ever happened. They knew that warhead was on its way to the United States. That's all that ever came of it. Nothing ever happened. This government did not do anything at all to help this gentleman raise the alarm and raise awareness that there is a very deadly weapon on its way to the United States. It's out there. Nobody knows where it's at now. It left Europe. Now it's gone. So my own guess, is that these drones are not nefarious in intent. If they are, they are, but I doubt it. But if they are drones, the only reason why they would be flying and flying that low is because they're trying to smell something on the ground. That's it. There's no other reason for a drone to be flying in the air other than to piss a bunch of people off at night. That's it. So my belief is they're trying to smell something on the ground, gas leaks, radioactive material, whatever. So, and do I think that that they're coming up out of the ocean? No, I don't think so. Drones that are multi-copter type drones, not the the fixed wing aircraft that look like regular airplanes, but the multi-copters, they only have so much battery life. They have hybrid versions that are gas powered with electric, but those can still only fly for a short period of time. There's no way in hell that any drone is going to go miles off the coast as a multicopter and fly into the interior of the United States and do a bunch of work and then turn around and fly back. It's just physics will not allow that to happen. So these drones, I believe, are launched from a location that nobody knows, but I do believe that they're flying low enough that they're just trying to sniff the ground and try to find something. So again, I hate to be a pessimist or a guy that thinks, directly to the negative. However, I know as a professional, I mean, we build professional stuff for the military. I believe that they're actually out there trying to smell something that's very important.
So, regardless of if that theory is true or not, very educational to say the least, from an individual who is literally the CEO of a company that is making unmanned aircraft for the US military. Now, Right. I'm curious. What have you seen this video? Was this the first time you watched this today?
This is the first time I've seen this video. There's definitely a lot to unpack there. First of all,
Definitely a lot to unpack.
Definitely a lot. So let's kind of just start kind of towards the beginning. So the same question. So he said 80 warheads, and he said they're just all gone. So it's like, okay, first of all, it's bad enough to lose one warhead in our own country, but 80 warheads that are just no one has no idea where they're at, and they obviously haven't been detonated because, well, we would know unless it's on the outer ice circles of our world. I'm just a little plug on that. But anyways, the fact that the U.S. is trying to find the warhead, because again, like if it got lost here, who's to say that people didn't come into this country the non-legal way, and they somehow got their hands on that warhead before they got into this country the non-legal way, and they're planning on doing something with that warhead in our country. It's just the right time, right place kind of scenario. Like they're just waiting for their moment, because it's been missing for how long now?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think he says specifically how long. Probably longer than ideal.
Yeah. Longer than what it needs to be.
Yeah.
So it could be anywhere in our country. Like it could be in any one of the most desolate places on our country, like on the land of our country, and we have no idea where it's at.
Yeah.
Like there's so many untapped areas of land that you could go hide somewhere and never find it at all. And having this many drones out looking. Now, here's my question though: why New Jersey? Why the New Jersey, New York? Like, why that coast? Like, what is it about that coastline that they think that it's there?
That's a good question. My initial gut reaction is high population, huge high population density urban centers. Also, it's a major port. So if you are coming in by boat or air from probably anywhere in Europe, like that's a huge hub for both tourism, economic trade. Like the city of New York is huge for that. Same with New Jersey. The port of New Jersey, I forget the statistics, but it's up there. It's like a top 3 port. It's like you have the port of Los Angeles, you got Houston. I think New Jersey's like number 3 up there. Or number 2. I forget. Houston's like number 1 in terms of like overall volume or something. LA is the biggest from, I think, like dollars that come in. I forget. But like New Jersey's up there. New Jersey is a huge port city. Mm-hmm. So if this thing came in by boat, I mean, New Jersey makes sense. And then you got New York. New York City's right there. It's huge, dense urban population.
And who's to say it actually even made it to our country?
That's true. There also is a scenario here where it's an entire false flag operation where none of this is real, but the story is going to be recorded in the history books as real, So it's like you basically have an intelligence agency saying, oh yeah, this is happening. And then it happens, but we do it to ourselves in order to have the outcome, the desired outcome. So if the desired outcome is we want to go to war with Iran or Russia, wouldn't you want Russia or Iran to attack us? Well, what if neither of those countries wants to attack us? Well, we can attack ourselves and just go say, oh, the guys over there did it. And the average citizen, it's not going to second guess that.
No, because they're going to follow. They're going to follow people. Like a lot of people here aren't smart enough. I'm not calling people dumb, but
it's not even just being dumb. It's they're really good at doing what they do. Case in point is if you look into what got us into the Vietnam War. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole because it could be a future episode for us. But for those of you out there listening, go find out why the Vietnam War happened. What was the tipping point for that? There was a specific event that happened that now that we're far enough in the future and we have understood what factually happened and what did not happen, we know that the main attack that we say was the reason we got into the war never actually happened. It was a fabricated attack. Now, in the moment, everyone believed it. It wasn't until years later, probably actually decades later, that most people were like, hang on a minute. But it's because we're having, we have this thing called the internet now, and we can easily share information. It's not isolated and siloed to someone's basement, and they're, called crazy for having this thought.
I think it's, if I'm being honest, I think most wars happen for, no, I mean, to be fair,
wars you're spot on. Most wars probably only are happening for economic reasons.
Yeah. And I don't think, because here's the thing, if it wasn't for World War I, World War II, and maybe a couple of the prior, or a few of the prior wars, like the Civil War, all those kinds of things, we wouldn't have the country that we have now. So historically looking at it, I mean, to get to where we are now, but I think ever since World War II, every war after that has just been for political and economical gain.
Oh, I think you can go way before World War II.
Really?
Oh, for sure. Like, even if you just look at, like, I know you threw out the Civil War as an example. There's so many. Look, I know someone's going to blow up in a YouTube comment somewhere about, like, oh, yeah, well, the war is for this reason, for that reason. There were a lot of reasons certain wars happened.
Well, we can definitely do an episode about all of this.
Yeah, but I think what really gives away for the Civil War is, do you know who was financially backing the Confederacy throughout the Civil War? Great Britain.
Yeah.
Because we had the cotton. The South had the cotton, and the British liked the prices we could offer them for cotton.
And it was after all the stuff with them, too, like that got us free from them, and then we ended up needing them to help.
Well, most people forget we fought them twice. We had the American Revolution and then the War of 1812. Like, they burned down the White House. Like, a lot of people forget that. They literally burned down the White House, and we rebuilt that sucker. So, like, wars happen for economic reasons more often than not, at least in my opinion. It's just
I feel that after World War II, there was no need for any other war. like there wasn't really a need for any other war, if I'm being honest. Like, that's just my opinion on that.
People said the same thing after World War One. You know what they used to call World War One before World War II happened? The Great War. It was like the war to end all wars. People thought when World War One was over, that was it. Like, that was the war. And then World War II happened. And then
now World War III is about to happen, apparently. I mean,
potentially.
Just saying, like, it just blows my mind. It's like, why do you want to go to war? Like, why? Like, why do you want to send there are going to be troops that are going to be sent over there, but why? That's just my question. It's like, why send more people to potentially die when we can just start producing all of our own stuff over here, just mind our own business, just do our thing, let everyone else mind their own business and do their thing, and then let's just be done, man.
Because it's not as lucrative.
I guess.
I agree with everything you say.
Stupid.
So the internet's been poking around and looking at there's live updated radiation maps you can find online, and looking at there's been increased radiation around the New York City area. So you can see in the bottom left here, that's Philadelphia. You got New Jersey over here just to the east of that, and then New York right here. So people are honing in on that.
This started as some questions, and now it's reached a point of almost insanity. You think about a United States senator who has to go out with the local police to look for drones. That's where a United States senator is getting information. We had a briefing from the state police, the colonel in the state police. He was frustrated. He had no idea where these drones are coming from. Not only did I call for a limited state of emergency and the FAA shutting down the airspace for drones, but also having the Department of Defense come in and answer questions. If the Department of Defense doesn't know where the origins are for these so-called drones, then we're in trouble. We always thought that if there was something in the air the size of a car, that the Department of Defense would know where it came from, what its origin was, and what its purpose was. Now you have a United States senator going out with the local police, to look for fireworks at night? That is scary.
It is terrifying. Like Caitlin just reported, President-elect Trump is calling for government transparency, which you are as well. He's saying maybe shoot them down if we don't get any.
And we were talking about a second ago, Trump going on record saying, why not just shoot them down? But I just want to show, that's evidence of even those that are representing us on the federal level still have no idea what the official response should be for this. Meanwhile, You have the Department of Homeland Security. This is all they have to say on the topic.
There's no question that people are seeing drones, and I want to assure the American public that we in the federal government have deployed additional resources, personnel, technology to assist the New Jersey State Police in addressing the drone sightings.
Their official response is, we're going to let the state of New Jersey figure this out. We'll give them some resources. Like, they're not even willing to go on record saying that, like, they themselves are willing to take this on. So that makes me think. And I have a couple other things I'll pull up here, and I don't want to take up the rest of the time, but it makes me wonder. I think we know what's happening. We just don't want to tell the public because it'll freak them out.
So what do you think because I have actually another theory, but what do you think is happening?
I think my current theory, as of recording this, it could change as more information comes to light, of course. I think what may have happened is there is a nuclear warhead that we don't know where it is. And it's in our country somewhere. We're currently on a search and rescue mission for that, to figure out where that is. But we can't tell the public we don't know where a freaking nuclear warhead is, because that's going to freak some people out. Because you have to think about the average person, they just go with the flow. They don't need to be concerned with things like this. And the minute you do that, it disrupts the status quo. People, like, if you knew, like, okay, I think you and I are probably anomalies to this, but I'll ask you this hypothetical scenario. If you knew there was a nuclear warhead, a legitimate warhead that could go off at any point, rolling somewhere around in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. You don't know where, but you know it's in the geographic region. Would you probably not go to work the next day just to see what's going on before, you decide to live your normal life again?
Probably.
Yeah, like you wouldn't want...
Like, I wouldn't even let Dana go to work. I'd be like, you're not going. I'm like, we're staying home. We're just going to keep an eye on all this and see what happens.
Exactly. So the economy would, like, roll to a screeching halt. People stop going to work. They stop buying things. Like...
Or they go buy everything and think it's going to help if a nuclear warhead goes off.
That too. People buy all the toilet paper at their local Costco. Like,
so here's my theory. This is a very, very much so far-fetched theory. Not making light of anything with this in a sense, because I know some people might get offended if I say this. When you pulled up that map and you showed New York and you showed that some of the higher radioactive, like, pop-ups in that area, and you're saying, like, it's not unheard of for our own country, and this is theory that we've talked about before, and a conspiracy theory in a sense, but it's not unheard of for our own country to do certain things to itself to justify going to war. I'm going to bring up a certain historical incident that happened, 9/11.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people think, I'm not saying there weren't other countries involved, but there were some questionable things that happened during that day that made it seem that it wasn't just an airplane, that because you see explosions from the bottom and then all of a sudden the entire building collapses, but like an airplane wouldn't cause the entire building and infrastructure to collapse like it did.
There are a lot of experts on record that will say it was a controlled demolition. Now,
it was a controlled demolition.
Planes did fly into the building, but they would say that the actual downfall of the building was a controlled demolition.
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't, like, based on what you said, and historically speaking, that our country has, in fact, not gone on record, but unofficially, there have been incidences that have happened that have caused us to go into war with other countries. What if this missing warhead is something that our country does know where it's at, our government knows where it's at, and they're planning on utilizing it in said historical area to ignite that so-called war that, they want to have. And it's just they're going to do like how they did, because who was it that they said that we got into a war? Who did we get into the war with that after 9/11?
Oh, Iraq?
Iraq. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
which had nothing to do with 9/11.
Yeah. But what if this is something similar that, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, any one of those four, but let's be honest here, Russia's the big one right now that they want to go to war with, which I don't understand why. But what if that's their overall, like if our government does know where it's at, they're planning on utilizing it themselves and saying, "Oh, it was Russia who did it."
Very possible. Very possible. And for those of you listening, I just threw this up on the screen, but Operation Northwoods, you can look it up. It's got a Wikipedia page. It was a proposed false flag operation that originated within the U.S. Department of Defense of the United States government in 1962. The proposals called for CIA operatives to both stage and commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets, blame them on the Cuban government, and use them to justify a war against Cuba. So it's definitely been done before, and it can be done again. It's probably happened many a time since then.
Right.
I'll hop off my soapbox here, but one thing I want to leave everyone with is the man who knows everything, for better or worse, Alex Jones.
This is an emergency message to Trump on this Friday evening. He just released a statement about 20 minutes ago calling for the Pentagon, calling for the federal government to shoot down these thousands of drones and UAPs, UAVs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, that are swarming military bases, key installations, airports. It appears to be a drone last night in New Jersey hit a passenger liner in the engine. They tried to cover it with a bird strike. We've seen the video. It looks just like a drone going to the engine. President Trump, when the Pentagon's telling you they don't know about this, when the FBI is saying that, that's BS. Most of the Pentagon's compartmentalized, as you know. Most of the FBI is not involved as well. But at the top, they are operating this out of different reconnaissance agencies within the Pentagon. These are all human craft. You can see that. It's clear. And this is a major psyop because you probably don't know this. Maybe you do, but there's a lot to know in the government. I've been studying for decades and still don't understand it all. But under COG, Northcom, starting in 2007, doesn't just take over the government in nuclear war or natural disaster. They can do it for UAV invasions or UFO events. I had an expert on it today, Wall Street Journal, former reporter, going over all this. So this is being used to ratchet up a civil emergency. It's also a message to Russia about secret weapons. But the idea that, the Pentagon says it's not the Iranians, but they don't know who it is. It's rogue elements of the government creating fear, creating hysteria. Now the FBI is, we need the public's help with this. The military's been ordered not to shoot these down. Anybody else flies over a military base and loiters, they get shot down. That's default federal policy. I know you know all of this or should know all this, President Trump, but you're being set up 37 days before you get in office for a national emergency. It's all part of the fake virus thing they're pushing again and the race war thing they're pushing and the Russia war. This is very serious, sir. And people can read you in on this if you're not aware of it. Don Jr., others, Barron, I know you guys are informed on this. Get it to your dad in case he doesn't know, okay? God bless her.
So
I'm telling you, man, they're trying to set the. I'm not here saying, again, we don't support either side, but you can clearly see, and just everything that we've talked about a lot this year.
We have.
So much has happened this year. We didn't want to be a political based or an economic based podcast. And after I finish up with this, we'll hopefully get into some more lighthearted things before we wrap up. But you can see, just if you cannot open your eyes and see just everything that's happened throughout this year and try to connect the dots, which is physically impossible to really connect a lot of these dots, but you could just see the patterns of what's happening. I like, they are setting this man up. They are about to hand him a massive like crap sandwich on a platter of a country in the next 37 days because of what is going on right now, because our current administration is not doing anything. And I've said this, be educated on who you want to vote for, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when you see everything that is happening right now, and you see like the fact that Trump has straight up just said either tell us what they are or shoot them down, and the military is just like, because of their orders from the actual current administration, is just like, nah, bruh, like we're not going to do that. We're not going to do anything that you want us to do, because they don't want to handle the situation. They want to hand it to him so that they can later come in 2.5 months later, 3 months later, and say, well, Trump didn't do this, or Trump didn't do that, or he failed in this regard, or he did this. Like, even I'm not going to play the video, but it was Putin that came out and said that he wants a world of, peace, prosperity, and all. Like, he doesn't want a war. Like, the man doesn't want a war. I don't even think he even wanted the war with Russia. People are thinking that now it was Ukraine who wanted the war with Russia, and that they were the ones who instigated it. So of course Russia's just going to fight back. Russia doesn't seem to want a war. They just want to be left alone. Why can't we just leave them alone? Because America is greedy. Our government
Yep.
is greedy. They want total control. They want total power. And unless we get a new full administration in there, like total, like which we're about to have, like whole Republican control in a sense, but just have people who are going to have the ability to just, let's just stop. Let's just stop all this. Let's just get back to just living, being able to afford to live and just enjoying our lives.
Speaking of being able to afford to live, Riley, how's the housing market going right now?
Oh man, well, I'm so glad you asked. I didn't plan that at all.
Heck of a transition. Call me the transition man. Actually, don't. That's kind of weird in today's context. Anyways, do continue, Riley.
Yeah, no. So again, kind of what I said at the beginning of the episode, I was at a Tom Ferry event, getting some good information, some good stuff for going into my business in 2025. And so we had Keeping Current Matters. So David Shoulders, the CEO of Keeping Current Matters there. And he gave us some information. It's 32 slides. I'm going to kind of breeze through a lot of it just because. But he says, people do not follow the best leaders. They follow the ones they can understand the easiest. So my goal is to educate people, help people understand. These are the three things he touched on. Where are the rates going? Will more homes sell next year? And what is happening with home prices?
I'm authentically curious about this. So you have my attention on this, good sir.
Okay. So he said, are we going to go back to 4%? This is Lawrence Yoon, a chief economist for National Association of Realtors. Per his forecast, unfortunately, we will not go back to 4% rates. It's more likely that we will go back to 6%. That will be the new normal, bouncing around from 5.5% to 6.5%.
Where are we at currently as of recording this? Do you know by chance?
Current
Mortgage rates.
Let's just
6.79.
Let's see here.
For a 30-year.
I think there is actually a slide on it, but let me just take a look right here.
Let's see. National average 6.74 according to bankrate.com. Freddie Mac, what you got? Drop some knowledge on me, Freddie.
Freddie Mac is 6.6 for a 30-year.
Okay.
For 15 years, 5.84.
Okay.
I usually get market updates from a lot of my lenders on Mondays, so some of the stuff might be on here, some of it might not be. But so for all of you people who are like, I really want those 4.5 rates, you see it here first.
Yeah.
We are not expected to go back. This is what their forecast and what their prediction is, that we are not expected to go back to the below 5%. Now, if you go with a new build, yeah, you can get below 5% because they're going to buy your rate down like it's nobody's business.
If you had to pick between those two options, which would you go? Would you go with, if you could get an established home, no HOA, more in the heart of the city, kind of, built in the 80s, it's been remodeled a couple times, so it's not like decrepit or anything, but you'd, get 6.5% on a 30-year note, or go not far out, but you go on the outskirts of town in a new build. It's got an HOA. All the houses have like 4 color schemes. That's kind of it. It's probably Lennar built, maybe DR Horton. I don't know. Right. I know some of them are sketch, but
right.
If you had to pick, what'd your gut tell you on that?
So let me preface this: if you go buy a new build and you don't have an agent with you, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like you're
gonna get taken advantage of.
I don't want to say you're going to get taken advantage of, but you're not going to know the right questions to ask. You're not going to know the right things to do, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. So when they say like, oh, we have our inspector go out there and check everything out, well, guess what? The builder's not working to advocate for you. The builder's working to advocate for themselves to get the sale done.
Good point.
So it's better to have someone there that advocating for you on your behalf and then negotiating their fee for the builder to pay, which a lot of builders are still paying fees anyway. So the buyer wouldn't have to pay the fee anyway. So those of you who are listening, my job is going to be to negotiate my fee with the seller so that you won't have to pay out of pocket, because that's a big thing that a lot of buyers were worried about. Now, even if you're a first-time home buyer and you don't want to do it with an HOA, again, me personally, if I'm buying my first home kind of thing, if I was buying my first home, I probably would seek the new build route, but with the current market, you'd be living in that new build for a lot longer than what you used to have to live in it for. So instead of like the 3 to 5 years, you'd probably be living in that new build for like 6 to 8 years before you could really try to resell it again, especially with all the rent rate caps and stuff like that for HOAs and stuff that they're now putting in place. I think with that being said, depending on what rates are at, I might just seek out like the 90s build, have something that's got some, good, strong bones. I'm not saying that a lot of the new builds are cheaply made, but you're not going to find a lot of structurally sound things like
I've seen horror stories, so I get what you're talking about. Because they put them up so fast.
Yeah. So these are actually the current, so mortgage rates and projections as of 12/6. So 30-year fixed rate as of 12/6. So the actual is 6.5, give or take. And then let's see here. So yeah, quarter.
Oh, so Wells Fargo's coming. No, actually, wait, which?
So
Wells Fargo's projecting the lowest.
Yeah. So Wells Fargo's projecting the lowest. So this is going into quarter 4. So this is currently right now. So going into quarter 1, we're going to be going into the low quarter 1 to quarter 2 of next year. We're going to be going into the low 6s again. And then we're probably going to be hovering around, like the lowest we'll get is 6.25, and that is Wells Fargo forecast. Again, these are just forecasts, and we don't know what's actually going to happen depending on the rate drops and what the Fed decides to do.
Yeah.
So these are all forecasted. So mortgage rate projections. So 30-year fixed as of 12/6. So quarter 4, we're at 6.6. 6.6 for MBA, 6.8 for Wells Fargo, and the average is 6.67. Now, again, this is the average. This is with average credit. This is with average down payment. But if you have amazing credit, you got 20% down, all that kind of stuff, you probably will not get a 6.7. You'll probably be in the lower, like 6.5 to maybe 6.4, depending on what the lender's going to shop the rates, but there's a lot of variables that come into play with that. Like, how's your income? How's this? How's it? It's just like buying a car. Again, quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're expected to get down into the lower 6s, but by the end of next year, they're projecting that we're not going to hit the 5s yet. So a lot of the rate drops that they're expecting to have next year, a lot of that won't really hit hard until 2026, more than likely, depending on what the market does next year. Lower mortgage rates are expected to boost the housing market, but the lift will be modest given continued tightness in the existing inventory and homebuyers staying on the sidelines expecting further rate declines. That's Freddie Mac. So a lot of buyers who are like, hey, we're not going to buy because we want rates to be lower. Go back to the first slide. We're not going to hit 4% interest rates again. So I get it. It's tough right now. And I'm not going to be the agent or the realtor that's going to tell you like, oh, it's a great time to buy. Talk with your local professional. Speak with your local professional. If they tell you, oh, yeah, you should buy a house right now without knowing any of what's going on with you or having you speak to a lender, all that kind of stuff, they are doing you a disservice. You need to speak to an agent who's going to ask you, set you up with a lender, have them answer those questions for you. So that way then they're not just going to say, oh, okay, you should just buy a house. If you can afford the payment and it is reasonable for you and is not going to break you to where in the next 3 to 5 years you may have to foreclose on that house because you can't afford the payments, hopefully that doesn't happen for anyone, then do not buy if you know that you cannot afford the payments. But if you can afford the payments and a lender tells you can afford the payments based on your income and everything that they tell you, then yes, it is a good time to buy for you. That is my whole ordeal, is that if you cannot, if none of the numbers make sense and you can't swing it, don't do it. I hate to say it, renting is still going to be the way to go.
We also have scenarios too, right? If rates really do come down drastically or much more so than they are currently, you're going to see an increase in price on a lot of these homes too, because
it'll be incremental, but yeah.
They'll know they'll be able to squeeze more out of you.
Yeah, but it says we expect existing home sales to tick up next year, ending 2025 at an annualized rate between 4.1 and 4.4. That represents a year-over-year increase of between 2 and 9%. We're presenting an unusually wide sales range this year because while high housing costs may price out some would-be buyers, there's also a fair amount of pent-up demand in the market. That's according to Redfin. So again, prices may come up, but also too, it depends on how many buyers we have out there. The market's going to eventually, I'm not going to do the whole absorption rate thing right now, but we're still kind of we're moving back towards a stable market, but we're still kind of on more of the buyer side because homes have just been sitting for so long. People are listing right now. I'm not saying it's a bad time to list, but with how a lot of the other homes that have been sitting, I would probably wait till maybe January or February before you really, start discussing the listing process, That way, then there's going to be a lot of homes that will come on the market again next year that might be applicable to sell. So 2025 existing home sales as of 12/6/2024. So NAR's expected 4.5, Bright MLS 4.4, Zillow 4.3, NBA 4.3, Housing Wire 4.2, Fannie Mae 4.2, Goldman Sachs 4.1, Realtor.com 4.1, and NAHB 3.8 with an average of 4.2. That is what their existing home sales. So that's not including new builds. Now here's the new home builds. So this is what is projected. So NAR is expecting 780,000, NBA 771,000, Fannie Mae 754, and NAHB 725,000 with an average of roughly about 760,000. So that's the average of what new homes are going to be sold. Now they are building a lot of new builds. A lot of new build communities are coming in. But because we have so many people now that are I think we talked about it last week, but we have so many people that are younger, slightly younger than us, that are now moving out, going to college, and about to graduate college now, and about to buy their first house, or hopefully buy their first house. A lot of them are probably going to have to move back home with their parents. They can't afford to live by themselves, and I've seen that. I've talked with people who've had friends that have done that, who've done that. So we'll see what happens. This is Ralph McLaughlin, senior economist at Realtor.com. Our 2025 forecast shows that as both lower rates and time chisel away at the lock-in effect that has held back sales this year, we should expect home sales to rise modestly by 1.5% in 2025. So there's the sales price increase. Now, even though prices are going to go up, I'm going to say this clearly. Just because a home is listed for the price that it's listed at does not necessarily mean that that is the price you're going to pay for your home. Everything is negotiable in real estate. Again, seek out your professional. They should be willing and wanting and like really excited about walking you through the process. So just want to preface that with everyone. Total home sales forecast to rise. So in the millions between 2019 and 2025. So as you can see, home sales went up drastically right before, or like as COVID was getting ready to hit.
That's crazy how much of a drop off that was, I guess.
Yeah. That's because everyone bought a house. Like they
locked in those low rates and they don't want to sell.
They locked in the low rates and they don't want to sell. And there was also, too, a lot of people that got their real estate license because they were helping all these people buy.
It was too easy to sell.
It was too easy to sell. And now a lot of those agents don't do it anymore because it's hard to market themselves. And it's hard because it was easy for you. That's why I'm thankful I'm not a part of that era, because I've been working. But they're expected to they're actually expected to kind of go down a little bit lower, just because they said it was going to be around the 4.1 to 4.4.
Yeah.
So it really just depends. We might see more than that. It depends on how many people actually decide that they want to. Prices will rise at a pace similar to that of the second half of 2024 because we don't expect there to be enough new inventory to meet demand. That's according to Redfin. So again, new builds are being built, but because we have so many people that are about to be in the position to possibly buy a house, they can't keep up with it. And because they're building them so fast, they're not building them. I'm not going to say new builders skimp out on things, but my inspector will catch things from a new build faster than what the person who actually works for the company will, because at the end of the day, again, the builder's working for themselves. The sales rep is working for the builder. So, again, 2025 home price forecasts. So percentage appreciation. So this is what they're expecting each one to go up in throughout next year. So how much your home could appreciate for. So the AEI Housing Center 5.5.
It's wild how Moody's is in negative 0.4%.
Yeah.
Well, you have like Wells Fargo and Bank of America, which I get it. They're in the business of lending money versus Moody's, I guess. But
right. Goldman Sachs also, Capital Economics, Redfin, HPES, Realtor.com. Like it's supposed to slowly start going down. Zillow. So here's the thing with Zillow. So I do get Zillow. Like our team gets Zillow provided potential clients and everything. The funny thing about that is they're actually getting really good at predicting what your home price is at. Like they're usually within 5 to 7% of what your home price actually is now.
Yeah, they have just so much data they can play with. Yeah.
overall, so this is only a certain amount. So I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, so all 19. So out of the average of all 19, you can expect a 3.1 appreciation increase to majority, if not all of the houses. Now, again, preface this from what I said earlier, this is all national. Like, this isn't just any one specific area. So if you live in the DFW, it's not going to be the same as living in New York City or living in California or Washington. It's not going to be the same. So Bill McBride, housing analyst for Calculated Risk. With the recent house price increases, some people are worried about a new housing bubble, but mortgage debt isn't a concern, and lending standards are much better now than during the bubble. So
let me ask you a question, though. Let me be the counter jab here. Don't they say that when we're in a bubble? Because I kid you not, right before you went to that next slide, I didn't know what was going to be on the next slide. I was going to ask you the question. I was like, do you think we're in a bubble? But I know it's a hard question to ask a realtor, just because
I'm not gonna say yes or no, but I've talked to some people on our team and everything like that, that if something like that does happen again, it won't happen until like 2027, 2028 is when we'll actually see something like that happen. But it won't be like a 2008 and it won't be like a 2021 kind of thing.
Because it'll be worse. I'm just
I don't
kidding.
know.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. The next slide I'm going to show you is the consumer debt at a record level, total debt balance and its composition in the trillions.
Yeah, I've seen graphs for this. This is crazy. Credit card debt is obscene.
So mortgage, HELOC, auto loan, credit card, student loan, and other. Look at that.
Yeah.
So that's mortgages. So this is let's see here, 03, 04, all the way up to 2024. So the mortgage debt has gone up significantly. This is all in the trillions. So this is how much. So in quarter 3 of 2024, this is how much mortgage debt was accumulated. So over $12 trillion in mortgage debt. Again, everything else, accumulated into that. Now, home equity is far outpacing mortgage debt. Total homeowner equity and mortgage debt in the trillions. So this is the home mortgage debt. So it's $13.17 trillion. That's quarter one. That's as of quarter 1 in 2024. So it might be a little bit higher now. Home equity is far outpacing mortgage debt in the trillions. This is how much equity people have total.
It's a lot.
So I think we've talked about it briefly, but unless he mentioned it, I can't remember if he mentioned it during his presentation, but when the boomers eventually pass away, we're about to have the largest transition of money generational wise.
Yeah.
And we had this little small dip right here where the equity was lower, and that was in 2011, 2010.
Right after the crisis.
Right after the crisis. But now it's all skyrocketed. And then we had a little dip in 2022, 2023, 2024, and then we just gone back up.
So let me ask you that same question again. Are we in a bubble? You don't have to answer that. You don't have to go on the record and say anything. But
no,
I'm not gonna. I just look at that graph and I'm like, yo.
I don't know every single bit of the information, so that's why I'm also not gonna say I'm not gonna give people false information.
I'm not expecting to answer that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, though, man. Like all this equity right here, like
what goes up must come down.
Biggest opportunity. Dallas, Texas total listing count. So this is how many listings that have been since the beginning of this year, every single month in Dallas-Fort Worth area, or just the metropolitan area, Metroplex area. So numbers went up. They've kind of come down a little bit. Started at 23,000, worked our way up.
Why does it get flat in the fall? Is there a reason for that? Because school starts?
It's just...
I say it gets flat. It's at its peak, though. It peaks and it stays flat.
For this particular year, because an election year, it doesn't always happen like this, but because this year was an election year, so that and a lot of these listings sat too. Like if you noted 35. Are
those and no worries if you don't know the actual answer. When it says total listing count, is that how many homes are actively listed on the market? Okay, I get it. So by summertime, if that house hasn't sold, it's just going to sit on the market.
A lot of the time, yes.
So between August, September, October, that's basically the same number of houses. It's was it a 54
And I don't know if this is counting like
Or
rental
47.
listings as well and
Yeah.
commercial listings. So like it does, because it doesn't say. So
Yeah.
take that into consideration as well. Median days on the market since May of 2024.
Slowing down.
It was slowing down, man. Because I listed a house
Oh.
right in here, and it sat on the market, and we're about to close on it tomorrow. And it sat on the market. I think it was 54, 55 days before it actually went under contract.
Man, if you haven't seen it yet, I need you to watch the movie The Big Short.
Yeah.
You got to watch that.
Pending listing count since May of 2024. There's how many pending listings. So it has gone down.
Yep.
So days on market, inventory, sales, all into expired listings. From January 1st to January 7th, 5,059 listings expired, were canceled, or were withdrawn in Dallas. Of those homes, about half relisted this year.
Interesting.
I'm not going to get into all this stuff because this is all like agent-based stuff, but it just talks about, who listed with who did what.
Oh, wait. Humor me. I saw there was a pie chart about if they relisted at a higher price, lower price.
Yeah.
Okay, well, go down one. At the same price, 20%. At a higher price, 21%. At a lower price, 58%. Of the 2,549 sellers who relisted, nearly 60% did so at a lower price. Okay, cool. So they're having a little come to Jesus powwow. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it sold at a lower price too. That was like 80% of those homes sold at a lower price than what they were initially listed for. That makes sense. They just were overpriced.
Yep.
They still thought interest rates were still sitting around 3 or 2%.
And so I'm not saying that, again, the market is what sets the price, and also too what buyers are willing to pay for homes. So it's like, even though like not everything is a dollar for dollar exchange.
Yeah.
You could be like, oh, I spent $80,000 and put this new pool in. That means my home is worth $80,000 more. You could not be more wrong, sir.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. There might be a little bit of that money that might play into that, but it's not going to be a full dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of preface that. So we had other things, but I feel like that's a good way to kind of end off this episode. Definitely a good way to finish off on a positive note, other than talking about possible world destruction and a war. Definitely enjoyed this one. We only got through a couple topics, but it was definitely a good informational one. Especially, that's what we do. We just present information to people based on what we learn, based on what we find out, and we'd love to hear your comments. Again, we want to get back in the mode of throwing it back to you guys and giving you all the opportunity to leave your opinions in the comments for an opportunity to be featured on our episodes and some stuff that we're going to be looking into doing and going forward with. But yeah.
I was going to say something sarcastic and I decided not to. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is episode 46 of the Unscripted Company podcast. Riley alluded to this just a second ago, but if you haven't done so already, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, drop a comment down below. Even you, those of you listening out there on Spotify, if you didn't know this yet, there's a comment section on the good old Spotify. Leave us a comment down below. What do you think is going on with these drones in New Jersey? We presented a couple of options, but maybe there's something out there that maybe you have ticking around in the old noggin that we're not even remotely aware of yet. Would love to hear what you think. Also, if you haven't done so already, head on over to unscriptedcompany.com. There's probably a link down there in the description somewhere. You can see, look at that sexy sweatshirt, that hoodie that Riley's wearing right now. It comes in the luxurious color of black, midnight black to be specific. Maybe not technically that. I just made that up on the fly. Who knows? But it's a great, comfortable hoodie. I'm wearing one as well. We have some other stuff. Riley, I didn't tell you this, but I listed the mugs as well. So the mugs are there. If you want some cold, if you want some hot chocolate while it's cold outside, it's a good opportunity to grab one of these. It's also good for coffee as well, or just any adult beverages that you might put in here. I think you put milk in here as well. You can figure it out. And with that, Riley, I'm going to pass it off to you as your mid-sip. Drop some knowledge on these people. Send these people on their way with some glorious, glorious wisdom.
All right. Do you think it's aliens? Do you think it's another country? Do you think it's our own country that has released these drones on us? Definitely want to hear your opinions on that. Again, we hope that our government isn't just straight up just playing this secretive game with us, but let's be honest here. That's kind of what they've been about, like, for the last, 8 years, if not further back. Also, As far as the information that I presented to all of you, again, whatever area you live in, if I'm not able to travel there, whatever the case may be, shameless plug, but please, if you're looking at buying this upcoming year, if you're currently looking to buy now and you just don't know where to start, hit me up. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. Probably will start putting my handles for that down below just so that people can just see that. But again, be mindful, do your research. And if you don't know where to begin your research at, then again, seek out your professional. But otherwise, we hope you guys have a great night.